Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm the host of GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. And with this great pleasure that I introduce my exciting guest. Where is my exciting guest? Meghan McCormick. She just dropped off for a second, I guess. Anyhow, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 17 startups, and I've been involved in 2 unicorns. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which is sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Zhang. And today we're going to be talking about Africa, African startups, and going global. Well, Meghan, we're live now. That is so strange.
Yes, it did not like when you left the waiting room.
That's strange. That's never happened before. Well, anyhow, great to have you here. So the audience had a little delay, but here we are. Anyhow, let me enlarge just a little bit. Yeah, that was strange. Never had that happen, but that's technology. Anyhow, so tell us a little bit about, so Meghan, in terms of, how did you go from the main line of Philadelphia, an Episcopal Academy, to, well, you went to Georgetown, and then you got 2 master's degrees, right? So you got your MBA and also your degree in public administration. Why did you get 2 master's degree, by the way? Did you just say, I want to do something different, or what?
Yeah, I like to burn money.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Hey, mom and dad, they're from the main line. What's a big deal? You know what I mean?
No, I was lucky to get very generous scholarships from MIT and then from the State Department, actually, to cover a lot of my degree at Harvard. But the rest of it is on me and on my student loans. But I knew by the time that I was going into grad school that I wanted a career in building disruptive businesses in Africa. And when you're working in markets where you're out ahead of the regulators, where there's so much to be done in the government, and when the government is really one of the major economic factors, a huge employer, you need to be able to speak both the language of business and the language of policy to be able to succeed. So that was the drive between getting both, and it's a really interesting concurrent program. So you'll go from a business school class over to a public policy class and be able to bring the lens of each into the other. So I think it's one of those situations where 1 + 1 equals more than 2. And then you're in a cohort of very like-minded individuals. So I would recommend it for anyone who's.
No, I mean, now, did you do them concurrently at the same time?
Yeah, it was wild. So I was at MIT and Harvard. They're a bike ride away from each other. So I was constantly going back and forth between the 2. And in my 3rd year, Oze was live in Ghana. So I was doing 2 masters and flying to Ghana once a month. It was a crazy time in my life that I wouldn't trade for anything.
You were doing it at the same time? Now, did you have to do 2 master's theses from both schools, or just one?
No, I actually had to do 0, which was pretty fantastic. Neither program required that you do a thesis.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, great. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, if you had to do 2, you might as well just have gone and gotten a doctorate, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you do that. So what happened? Did one morning you wake up and say, I'm going to Ghana? Did you watch a show on TV, or did you talk to friends? What was it one day that said, where I want to go? How did you make that determination?
It actually, the path to Ghana goes through other African countries, namely Guinea. I did the Peace Corps in Guinea in 2011. And that's what really started me down this path of working with small, medium enterprises and entrepreneurs in West Africa. And so there was a moment in time when we were developing Oze actually as part of a nonprofit in Guinea. And it became very clear that this technology we're building had no place in a nonprofit. And so we need to go somewhere else was when we decided to spin it out into a for-profit company. And I wish there was some cool story about why Ghana. It's like the most MBA thing I've ever done. We had like a matrix listing all the countries down one side and parameters across the top, and Ghana won out.
Really? So
Yeah.
that's how you made the decision. Now, what is life like, Megan? How different is life there? Right now, you're in the main line. So,
Mm.
what's your life like in Ghana? How does it different?
So I think there's incredible diversity of lifestyles across Africa and then within African countries, right? Being in Accra, the capital, it's fairly cosmopolitan. Being in a rural area, you could be living, in what people probably picture when they think about living in Ghana. When I am living in
What do
Accra,
they picture, Megan? What do they picture?
they probably picture a lot closer to what my living situation was in Guinea, but the mud hut with the thatch roof and going to the well and
Did
cooking
you do,
outside over a
now you
campfire.
lived in Guinea, right?
Hmm.
Did you do that?
I lived in une casa améliorée, which means like a slightly improved hut. So I had a tin roof, living large, but I lived in like a hut, like one room. You walk in the door, everything is there. I cooked over charcoal. I did laundry by pulling water from the well and like using one of those like old timey boards.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, for 2 years.
now was the water clean? Was it safe to drink?
So you wouldn't drink well water, you would drink pump water. So then like maybe a kilometer away, there was a pump and you would go with jerry cans and wait in line for hours and fill your pump water and like carry it back on your head. And
Did you carry
about
it on your head?
I did. I've never been stronger than when I lived in Guinea. I don't think I could do it now. Um, but somebody stole our pump 1 year into my time living there. Like they in a rain store attached a chain to a motorcycle and pulled it out of the ground, and I guess sold it for parts. So then I captured and filtered rainwater and basically drank that for a year.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! And did you send these pictures back to your mom and dad and say, "Listen, let me show you. Hey, listen, here's my tin can on my head."
In the beginning, yes, like I had a blog, and as it goes from being like a new experience to just life, like you stop thinking, like you stop being on the outside of it looking in, and you just start like living it, right? You're humans are incredibly adaptable, and the kind of rugged living conditions were fairly easy to get used to. It was, much harder to as a Peace Corps volunteer in a small town in Guinea. I was very visible. Everybody knew who I was, what I was doing, where I was, like at any given moment of the day. And so being on and working basically every time I stepped out of my hut, that was so much harder than having to pump water and carry it on my head.
Really? Now, I got a question. How in the world do people balance on their head? What happens? Because I mean, it's unbelievable. I've seen like
So,
big
yeah.
pots and stuff. How
Oh,
did?
yeah.
And did you do that?
So I kept one hand up. I was not. I needed an extra balance support, but I mean, you go to the pump, right? It's women and then children of both genders, and from basically the time the child can walk, they're practicing. So where I would have like the big jerry can, like my younger host sister would have a smaller jerry can, and like the smallest child would have like a tomato paste can. And so from the age you're walking, you're balancing things on your head, so that by the time you're an adult it is like absolutely remarkable because a jerry can, like it's pretty balanced, but you could have like you see women carrying like stacks of things where like the center of gravity is not in the center of the object. And you're just like they duck under trees, they pick up kids. I'm like, and nothing falls. Like in my almost
Really?
10 years of living on and off in West Africa, I've never seen anything fall off someone's head.
That's incredible. I always wondered how that would happen. Now, what about So you grew up in the main line and now house with Rosemont or wherever you are, but then how do you go to having charcoal? I mean, sure, you didn't grow up in the main line on the main line with charcoal. So what was it like? Was it like camping? Did you feel like you were camping sometimes, or?
Yeah, I'm also not a camper. Like I was not an outdoorsy person growing up either. I think what's really unique about the Peace Corps is it's not like you get there and then the next day you're living like in a village. You have 10 weeks of training. And you have host families who have specifically signed up to help transition Peace Corps volunteers into life in a community. And so I learned and adapted. And I mean, I was 22, right? At 22, you can do anything, or at least you think you can do anything. But yeah, people were, I mean, and everyone was so patient with me. Everyone was like willing very much to teach and help and learn.
Interesting. And so, is it dangerous? Was it dangerous being in Guinea, or how was it?
You know, like many developing countries, I think road accidents are the most dangerous thing that could happen to you because the quality of the infrastructure, the quality of the cars are very low, and the respect for rule of law on the roads is also quite low. Um, you know, Guinea is a pretty unstable country. They just had a coup last week. But I don't think I've ever felt safer in my entire life because I was integrated into the community. So I walked maybe 2 or 3 kilometers every day from my house at the outskirts of town into the office and then back at night. And every single person along my road would like watch me from the time I came in sight to the time I was like passed to the next house. Um, and
Really?
so,
And why was
like,
that? Why were they watching you?
so they they just like I was a member of their community, and they didn't want anything to happen to me. And then there was also like, um, you know, this fear that if anything happened to me, like they would get in trouble. There's always be like, oh, no one can rob you because if you do, Obama will come.
Really?
No one wanted to disappoint it. I mean, the Peace Corps has been in Guinea since um, like the early 60s. It was like the second Peace Corps posting in the world. And so there's an immense amount of friendship and trust and respect for the organization and for the volunteers who come and live in communities. So yeah, I was incredibly well sought after. I mean, you could get into my hut. Like if with a minimal amount of effort, you can get into my hut. And my laptop alone was worth more than per capita GNI, right? Like 3 people could make in a year the cost of my MacBook. So it's not like I didn't have anything in there worth stealing, but no one, it was like, felt like it never even crossed anybody's mind that they would do that to me.
Wow, that's amazing. What about the social life? What do people do? So you're down there in Guinea. What do you
I
do?
had no life. I would laugh and say my best friends were my 54-year-old host dad and my 9-month-old host brother. Um, when I lived there, we didn't have electricity. Like the neighborhood was completely off of the grid. So every night you sat on the front porch. We would like pull out plastic chairs, sit on the front porch, eat dinner, listen to the radio, chat, say hi to neighbors. I would, go to bed really early. It's a Muslim community. I was fairly near the mosque, so I would wake up to the call to prayer in the morning. Go to bed and early to rise kind of lifestyle. Of course, like young people are young people in any country. So there's nightclubs and bars and hanging out and mischief and like all of that good stuff. But
Could you go to those places? Megan, was it safe to go there?
yeah, I mean, I rarely did it because I wanted to protect my reputation. Like, as I said, I was super visible. So occasionally I would go out with friends. But mostly I hung out with old people and children and listened to the radio.
Seriously.
Yeah, yeah. The first time when I came back to the US and went out in New York City, let's just say it wasn't pretty because I was so not used to any of it.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, so you're in Guinea and then in the Peace Corps. So do they pay you to do that, or is it free, or what happens? Are they
You get paid like a poverty wage. So like your housing is taken care of, your healthcare is taken care of. You get stipends for this and that and the other thing. I think I probably made like $1,000 a year
a
from Peace
year?
Corps. Yeah, from Peace Corps service. And then the more time you're in, you're accruing what they call a readjustment allowance. So they don't want you to come in and be living like so far above the community, right? If I was making even US minimum wage, I would have been the richest person in my community. Um, and so that you're accruing it and you get access to it when you finish your service. And that's like $3,500 a year. It's one of the most
You know,
underutilized
you're
tools
really
of the
making
U.S.
good money.
government.
Was it
Oh
worth
yeah.
it in terms of the experience? Would you do it again?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm glad I did it when I was young, but I would do it again in a heartbeat because I think that it's allowed me to like context switch very well, right? So I can go into the market where I would buy my daily groceries, sit down, chat with the women in Susu, their local language, and then like, go
Wait a
to an
minute. You
internet
speak African languages too?
a little bit, yeah. Um, and then get on a Zoom and do like a presentation to executives at a technology company, right? These are the Peace Corps put that experience into me at a young age, and I, I think sometimes people will say like kind of you clearly American white girl, no ties to Africa, like how do you think you know how to build technology for our citizens, for our people? And it takes very short into the conversation for the person who I'm talking with to realize that the investor class, the tech class, the elite class in these African cities have had less experience kind of living at the level of the typical citizen of their country than I've had. So of course you're always going to be an outsider. Like of course you don't know what it's like. Like I don't know what it's like to be Ghanaian. I miss cultural clues. But as long as you know that and you create systems in your company to kind of overcome that shortcoming, Peace Corps put me so exposed at a community level that like I'm not like a person imagining what tech could do or how tech could work or how I need to adapt it. But like I know because I mean for 2 years I only shopped for micro enterprises. All of my friends were entrepreneurs, farmers, small shopkeepers. Like that was my life. And so
Now, how do
I
you
think
buy stuff? Megan, do they have like malls there? Do you go down to the Guinea Mall and hang out? Was there like,
uh so
is it air conditioning like Valley Forge?
So Guinea and Ghana are very different places, right? Like Ghana is closer to the US, I would say, than Guinea is to Ghana, especially if we talk about like the urban centers. When
Yeah.
I lived in Guinea, there were no shopping malls in the whole country. So
Where did you
I
buy
didn't
your
live,
toothpaste? Where did you get your toothpaste and soap? And
yeah, like an open air market. So I had no, right, I said I had no electricity, so I had no refrigerator. So I went to the market every day and bought what I needed basically for the next 24 to 36 hours. Guinea now has a mall. In my town, the gas station was where you could get air conditioning. So on like a really hot day, I would go down to the gas station and like buy a Coca-Cola and like linger while I drank it if I like needed air conditioning.
seriously,
Yeah, but Ghana's got plenty of malls. Like Ghana, I mean, Ghana loves malls. South Africa loves malls. Kenya loves malls. I mean, this e-commerce is not so widely practiced yet or adopted in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's still, if you think back to like the early thousands or the late 90s, where like you would go to the mall and buy the 10 different things from 5 different shops that you needed, like
right.
that's still kind of how we shop in Ghana.
And then what about like fun in Ghana? What do you do for fun?
So Ghana is really, really fun. I recommend it for anyone to come for vacation. Um, it's on the beach. There are plenty of beaches where you can swim, hang out. It has like a very lively restaurant scene, like cool bars, like cultural activities. So there's no shortage of things to do in Ghana.
And so, like going if you go out on a date in Ghana, is it just not like going to the gas station and hanging out for the air?
No,
Okay.
no. Um, no, in Ghana, I mean, you can go to a rooftop restaurant and eat sushi and buy like a multi-$100 bottle of wine, if you are so inclined. Um, so all kind of all levels of spending and luxury exist in Ghana.
So what about are dinners expensive there? Is it expensive compared to the States?
So there's, I mean, there's an emerging middle class, but in most of these markets, there's not really a middle class. So there's food that caters to the lower class, and then there's food that caters to the very rich. So I can eat lunch for 50 cents. Um, and I can eat lunch for $20, right? And there's like not that
Still
much
not
in
bad.
between.
Yeah, that's not bad. So, okay, so let's talk about some of the things you're working on today.
Mhm.
OZ and Dare to Innovate. So let's talk. What's OZ doing?
So Oze is creating software to help small business owners be better businesses and better borrowers.
Hmm.
So we look at record keeping or accounting as behavior change, right? If you're keeping records in a notebook or you're not keeping them at all, you're not using data to make decisions, even the existence of a new record keeping tool isn't going to get you there. So we really focus on the incentive structures, the nudges, the gamification, the behavior science around how we help business owners get that data and use it to make good business decisions. On the flip side of that, we are seeing the intimate details of their business performance and to a level where nobody else can be able to see them. And so when you think about that, like we hear about digital payments, we hear about mobile money. Um, Most transactions in these markets are still in cash. And because we've treated it as behavior change, we see the mobile money, we see the bank transfer, but we also see all of the cash. So then we use that kind of thumbprint of your business cash flows to create a credit score and partner with financial institutions to then digitize and on lend small business loans to our customers.
No, that's great. And how's business?
It's a really exciting time. We've been growing like more than 30% per month in terms of active users. But I think more importantly for us is that we're also seeing huge leaps of the performance of our business owners. Anybody who works with small business owners, regardless of geography, knows that the best way to build a sustainable and valuable business is to help them make more money. So we're seeing customers of ours double their revenue each year for multiple years in a row since they start using Oze. We're seeing them get access to their first loan, paying it back on time, getting their second and third loan, and going from just trading over WhatsApp to being stocked in major grocery stores. And these kinds of leaps and bounds we're seeing for our user base is really the growth that we want to be focused on.
Oh, that's super. What about Dare to Innovate? What are you doing with that group today?
So Dare to Innovate is definitely the largest and oldest business accelerator in Guinea. We think it might be the largest or most active in French-speaking Africa. It focuses on a different segment of the entrepreneurship population in that it's designed to take unemployed young people
Hmm.
from being unemployed to creating work for themselves and for others. Half of the portfolio in Dare to Innovate is agriculture. Um, and then most of it is social enterprise in that it's private sector stepping into to fill market failures. So like where we've seen the most success in our portfolio companies are on like low cost private education in villages up country where the teachers don't show up at the public school, that kind of thing. Um, I'm really excited because before the end of this year, Dare to Innovate and Oze will actually be working together. Dare to Innovate doing the training on entrepreneurship,
Wait a minute,
and
you're
then
the CEO of both companies, right?
so by next month, I will we'll be transitioning the leadership and management of Dare to Innovate completely to local ownership. That has always been the goal from day one. And as Oze scales, it's hard for me to be managing both organizations. But we share DNA, and Dare to Innovate is a shareholder in Oze. So there is even kind of structural interweaving. Um, but we are going to be doing projects completely together where they're doing the training and we're providing the technology and access to credit through financial institutions that Oze is partnered with across multiple African countries.
That's great. So, we're coming up to the top of the hour. What advice do you have, and what are three differences that you see and ways that we can make a dent in the universe? So one is, how different is it, and how do people get involved? They want to help, and they want to, because we're working in Africa too, and I think Ghana and Kenya especially. But there's a lot of differences, right? I mean, each country has their own language. I mean, it could be French, could be one of the old colonies, or English, or whatever. Um, so, so what do you think? In summary, what do you think in
Mm.
terms of the environment there? What are three things that the audience needs to know about working in Africa, and what opportunities are out there for them?
Sure. And it's not just the old colonial language like the French, English, Portuguese. I think Nigeria has hundreds of languages that are spoken. So I would say a couple of things. One, if especially if you're coming in from outside, and coming in from outside can be like you or I, an American, coming to a new country. Coming from outside can be someone who went to the best universities and schools in Ghana and is now trying to create solutions for farmers. If you're not your target customer, a heavy dependence, reliance, and usage of human centered design is going to be the key to your success.
Right.
I can't create for my customers. I need to create with my customers. And so we treat, especially like our early customers, those who've been with us for a couple of years, like they're members of our team as much as anyone who we're paying a salary to. Like they are doing work with and for us because they know every improved feature is going to make their business stronger. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is it is hard. Like it's not easy to work in markets where you're a pioneer, where access to capital while we are celebrating these large rounds is still incredibly constricted, especially if you have a certain educational background or gender or upbringing. And so you
What do
have
you mean
to
gender? There's gender roles in terms of
uh,
getting investments and things, or
yeah, they suffer from the same issues that the rest of the world suffers in that male-led companies get like the outsized amount of funding. I think especially as you get into the kind of above $1 million deal size, so like seed rounds, you see like I can probably count them on one hand the number of women who have raised as much capital as we have working in African markets. Um, so you have to not be doing this because you want to play entrepreneur or because you're excited about the hype and it's cool. Like you have to do it because you can't imagine yourself doing anything else.
right?
So that would be my second thing, and is that you have to be just completely fixated on solving the problem. And I guess the third thing would be is for most people listening probably aren't going to uproot and move to Africa. I really think you do need to live in the context that you're building from. I don't really believe in the model of sitting in Silicon Valley and building products, for the African market. So most people listening probably aren't going to move to Africa. So what can you do? Like do your research, like get to know the nuances, pick a country, pick an industry, and like get smart on what's going on there. There's super exciting innovation that's happening in Africa that can even teach you lessons on how you can do work in other emerging markets or even in the US and Europe. And then deploy dollars. Like the best way to learn what's going on in a new market and is to get skin in the game. So go for it. Like do your research and then pick a couple of companies and put some money into them. I think our earliest investors who committed to Oze before we had a product, part of it was we missed China and we're not going to miss Africa. Um, and the boat's moving. So right now there's like a ton of arbitrage. You can get like insanely low valuations for the promise of what these companies are going to build. But we everybody on the continent needs more capital than we have access to in order to fulfill those promises.
No, I understand that. I mean, that's one of the reasons we created GSD Venture Studios because we believe intellectual capacity is evenly spread, but opportunities aren't. So that's great. And how does it look? Is it are you coming out of the summer and going into winter, or what time of the year is it there?
Ghana is pretty close to the equator, so it's pretty much the same thing all year round, except rainy season and dry season, and we're in rainy season right now.
Can you ride your bikes around Ghana? Are there places to ride bikes and all that? Do people do that?
People do. I don't. So I went from using my bike as my primary means of transportation in
That's what I was
Cambridge.
gonna say. Why wouldn't you use your bike again?
Um, One is just the temperature. It's hot, so I would be pretty gross by the time I get to the office. And then the gutters are open, like the sewage system is open.
So
So if
it's
you,
open?
yeah, like in many, like they're troughs that run on the side of the road. Um, so that's what makes me most nervous. Like the worst biking accidents I've heard is like somebody getting kind of run off the road. There's not like a soft landing. You go into a
The sewer.
sewage trough.
Oh
Yes.
my gosh, that's
So
making out want to ride a bike, isn't it?
yeah, I've done it once. There's a really cool guy who's trying to increase the usage of bikes from a sustainability standpoint in Ghana, and on Sunday mornings when everyone's in church, so traffic is pretty calm, he does bike tours of Accra. And so that was the one time that I rode a bike, and I was glad from my training in Boston with the masshole drivers before I got on a bike in Ghana. But it's not going to be become an everyday kind of thing.
That's great. So, closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you?
So, very easy to find me. I'm on all social media. Our company's Twitter is at Oze, O-Z-E, or sorry, O-Z-E. I'm on Twitter as Mujle, Muhzle. And you can always shoot me an email at megan@oze.guru. So we're looking especially for smart people with ties to the continent who want to come back and build with us. So please feel free to reach out to me.
No, that sounds great. And what's the best way, LinkedIn or Twitter?
Yeah, I would say probably Twitter over LinkedIn, but you can also find me on LinkedIn, Meghan McCormick.
All right, Megan, thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Sorry about that glitch. That was
Oh,
unusual,
no.
to say the least. It just vanished. I'm like, what do we do now? Hum the hum the hum, though, right? Anyhow, not the
Yeah.
first time. I'm sure won't be the last. To my audience, thank you for attending another episode of GSD Presents Silicon Valley AI and Tech. Stay tuned because I will be back next Tuesday and we'll have another session. And also check it out. I'll be speaking at the United Nations on October 1st about technology as a tool to make the world a little bit better place. So check that also. Again, my name's Gary Fowler. Great seeing you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay happy, and keep smiling. Take care of yourselves and get stuff done. Thank you.